You're listening to Boobies and Noobies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. Welcome to Boobies and Noobies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today marks the first episode in our Slick Summer Nights series. Can you taste it? You will. Join us all July long for an epic showdown of smexiness as contestants share their favorite steamy segzerps for, shall we say, a non-biased judge of sorts. Be sure to follow Boobies and Noobies on social media at Boobies Podcast, as we'll also be sharing the Slick Summer Nights results all month long. And you, the listeners, can help determine the ultimate champion by voting for your favorites on the Boobies and Noobies Instagram. As per usual, you can always catch up on past episodes of Boobies and Noobies on your favorite podcast app or on boobiesandnoobies.com. If you're a fan of the show and you'd appreciate my undying love and devotion, you might consider leaving Boobies and Noobies a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or supporting the podcast on Patreon. We've got monthly patron-only events, sneak peeks at what's coming up next, and so much more. And you gain instant access to it for as little as $1 per month. You will, of course, find links for all of the above in today's show notes, as well as information on each of our guests. And now, let the showdown begin. It's time to meet today's competitors, starting with romance reader and organizer of one of my favorite romance-related Facebook groups. It's Jenny Smith.
Hi, everybody.
Glad to have you, Jenny.
Thanks for having me.
Always welcome. And facing off against Jenny, it's author, editor, and book talker extraordinaire, Alicia Delory.
Hi.
That was a tentative hi, Alicia. Don't be scared.
No, as soon as you click record, I gotta make it weird. I don't know if something goes off. I don't know.
That's cool. We're keeping it on brand for this podcast. Now, ladies, before you tell us each about your books that you've selected for today's showdown, let me introduce our judge. She's a blogger, bookstagrammer, and just all-around supporter of romance books. It's Nikki Brooks from Nikki's Book Nook. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, ladies. Hello.
Glad to have you with us.
I'll try not to go too Scottish on you, or you'll never understand a word.
I don't know. I feel like I've been watching enough Acorn TV the last few years to like really, this is what it's been preparing me for. So I'm thrilled that you're each here. Why don't we begin by each of you telling the fine folks listening at home a little bit about you and your relationship with the wonderful genre of romance. And I'm going to kick it over to Alicia to start us off.
Okay, so I read a lot of romance, but it's mostly rom-com because I need the hijinks, right? So I like the sexiness, but I need the hijinks because that's the only way I can picture myself in it. A lot of rom-com, I don't write it. I write nonfiction, some pretty heavy stuff. I don't really want to read that. I like it nice and light and funny, but then like out of nowhere it gets super sexy. That's why you don't see me with too much like straight smut, because for me I'm just not that serious, and I try to put myself in those scenarios, and I'm just like, that would never happen. It's got to be weird and a little bit farcical first, and then just somehow find its way to sexy. That's where I live on that spectrum. So I devour rom-com.
Awesome. Light and sexy. That's your brand. I appreciate it. Over to Jenny. How about you?
So I've been reading romance for a very long time. I started kind of out with Nora Roberts and sort of went from there. And I was really reading like a lot of traditional romances, pretty straight and narrow with that. And then kind of fell into the whole Facebook indie world about maybe 5 years ago now, and started finding all of these amazing indie authors that were sort of broadening my horizons. And I will read anything. I will read young adult, up to contemporary, up to monster porn. I will read it all.
I love it.
Anything that you want to suggest to me, I will read. There's really nothing that I say I don't want to read. I'm open to anything. If I start reading it, realize it's kind of not for me, that's okay too, but I will try it at least once.
It's a good, mindset to have for sure. I try to approach romance very similarly, which is probably why I enjoy hanging out in your Facebook group. I will say, I feel like Facebook gets shit on a lot these days, but the one thing it is so good for are reader groups, author groups. So that's basically what keeps me coming back to Facebook at this point.
If you're not liking Facebook, you're just not on the right part of it.
Yeah. This is true. This is very true. I agree with that as well. Nikki, how about you, our judge for today? What's your relationship with romance?
I've seriously been into romance for about 8-10 years, and I actually fell into it through reading some local authors, some Scottish authors, who then got me eye-opening into all different forms of romance. Romantic suspense and rom-coms are kind of the topics of choice. Do like a bit of sci-fi romance, but if it's going to be contemporary romance, it's going to have people with guns. It's got to be Americans with guns, because us Brits, we don't deal with guns very well. and my day job is working with law enforcement, so if it's set in Britain, it's too close to home. And I rave and I rant that they're not doing it right, and that's not how we do that. And where's my department? My department's not mentioned in this book. That's not how a murder inquiry goes. So it has to be removed. So it's got to be Canadian set, America set, Australia, anywhere that's not home. And I'm a bit like Jen. I'll read anything once, and if it's not for me, well, at least I gave it a try. The only thing I don't really do is really, really, really dark romance and taboo romance. That's about my only limits. Anything else is open. I'll give it a go once.
I love it. I also have to say, it's so interesting to me just hearing from someone outside the United States that's interested in reading romance set in the United States with guns, just because of in real life in the United States, the massive gun issue that we have here, that it's something that would never occur to me. But again, I think very specifically as a woman in the United States reading romance mostly written by American authors. So interesting point of view. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice. They're a nice thing to have, and understand why they have it. But to us Brits, it's just a what? I mean, our bobbies go around with a truncheon, so... maybe a taser, maybe some pepper spray, if you're really, really lucky. So the whole gun thing is just like, what? And it's not the first time I've had to sit, with Google and go, what is this? Mm-hmm. What does this thing look like? Mm-hmm. What does this pew-pew look like? Because it's the only way it makes sense in my head. Got to look up what the pew-pew looks like. Got to look up what the cars look like. Mm-hmm. I am ever learning.
So interesting. Yeah, our reality is your, escape fantasy almost. So
very much.
What a wild, wild take.
An escape grounded in another reality.
Right.
In a nutshell, she just described my trouble with fantasy. That I can't. I needed to be grounded somewhere to hang on to it.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of American readers would say that they love a good escape to the Scottish Highlands in a romance. So it's kind of the flip side.
We will give you a hairy Highlander and you give us an FBI agent.
Trade. Well, that's wonderful. I love hearing from readers outside the United States as well. So I appreciate you being here, especially considering the time difference. But the real question, ladies, is, in your opinion, what makes for a good, memorable, steamy scene in a romance book? And Nikki, I'll just turn it back around to you this time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what makes... There's got to be dialogue. It's got to be sparky banter.
Okay.
It gets them to the moment. I'm a bit like Alicia like that. If it can be klutz-filled, they fall into the bed doing something else, or, trapped in a snowstorm and it's snarky banter, enemies to lovers. I need that kind of thing. There's got to be the fun to get them there. I don't mind a bit of angst, but it's got to be mostly fun. And there's got to be emotion that I can't just do a wham bam thank you ma'am. As much as, that's fine every so often, but that's not my jam. My jam's got to have some kind of emotion there, whether it's insta love, insta hate, insta lust. There's got to be something there that kind of ties them together, not just, oh, you are an available person, I will do you. That's not for me.
Yeah, I love that it has to be some emotion attached to it, not necessarily like a positive emotion. Like if you want to angry fuck each other, that's an emotion.
That's a good one.
As long as there's something to tie them together, then that's fine.
That's great. That's awesome. Jenny, how about you? What makes for a good, memorable, steamy scene?
I'm a lot like Nikki, but boy, do I love the like slow burn buildup of just, I love that. But, hey, if they do it in the first 3 pages, I'm cool with that too. As long as they've got some kind of connection, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to complain either.
Exactly. Right. It's like, hey, that's cool. But yeah, I really like the emotional connection that they have. I don't like an extra long scene or like kind of the same thing over and over in the book. Like, I feel like each time it should be a little bit unique in some way, but I'm not a fan of like it being there because you can put it there. You know what I mean? It has to make sense to me in the book. So if like there's a whole lot of sex scenes in it and it just isn't making sense for the actual story, I don't like that. Kind of distracts me a little bit. But yeah, I love that emotional buildup and like that kind of longing for each other, and then bam, that's what I like.
Okay. BAM, bam. All right. Alicia, how about you?
I mean, I like a good build-up too. I will agree with, it's not that I necessarily prefer them to be on the shorter side, but like she said, I don't need filler, okay? Like, it needs to be as long as it needs to be without me getting 80 different synonyms for the word wet. And I like the banter and the talk, but it's got to be like, if you use the wrong word, it's going to take me right out of it. I'm sorry. But yeah, I like the hijinks. I like the clumsiness that leads up to it, because I really like that juxtaposition of like, I am a normal, ridiculous person, but now I'm wild. I like that it can just switch like that, because that's the way life is, and that's what makes it so much fun and so satisfying when you get to those scenes.
Yeah, it sounds like we're all in agreement that we happen to love a lot of like fun in our sex scenes and our steamier moments as well. Like they don't have to be they don't have to be super serious and emotional. They can be. They don't have to be very hard and dirty. They can be. But we also like to have like a little bit of fun, a little bit of hijinks, as Alicia said, a little bit of clumsiness, awkwardness, which I happen to love in my scenes as well. So, wow, I think
so much easier to be in it.
Yeah, I think
like put yourself in it, when it's like that.
I think I inadvertently put together the perfect group of people for this episode. And I will say, as I was putting together the episodes, a lot of it was planned by the timing, by who was available on what days. But I did try to pit books against each other and scenes against each other that I thought were different enough, but also relatively similar in terms of steam level. But it's interesting. I'll be very interested to see how this one goes, because I think we all kind of share a similar mindset. And really, I mean, Nikki, this is the hardest job is on you, because you have to be the one that has to make a decision at the end of all of this, not me.
Decisions. What can I say?
So without further ado, let's go ahead and have each of the contestants introduce the books you'll be reading from today, the title, the author, and just a little bit about the books as a whole. And Alicia, Jenny, whichever one of you wants to go first, go forth.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I've chosen Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. It follows Ari. She is a weather girl at a local news station, and her coworker Russ. We get a plus size male love interest, by the way, which is awesome. They plot to get their bosses to get back together because they work for these divorced bosses who are just raging at each other and making the work environment like completely hostile. And then, of course, romance ensues, and we get to see Ari and Russ's love story play out. And, there's themes of like, she's got a little bit of depression, but she's also super quirky, wearing like weather themed jewelry. And he's like he's a single dad or a divorced dad. Just, it was so cute. I want to put it in my pocket, but then it got sexy.
Weather Girl, this one's been on my TBR list for a while, and I haven't gotten to read it yet, but I do have a copy waiting for me to read, so I'm very excited. And I've heard nothing but great things about it.
It's light. It deals with some real world stuff, but not too heavy because truly I read to get away from the heaviness that's going on around us.
Delightful. Jenny, how about you? What will you be sharing with us today?
I'm going to share an excerpt from Bohemian by Kathryn Nolan. It takes place in Big Sur, California. It's about Calvin and Lucia. Calvin is actually a nerd. He grew up, with a regular family, but he had a very eccentric grandfather who owned a bookstore called the Mad Ones. That was in Big Sur, California. He had poets and authors come and read at this place, and Calvin spent every summer with his grandfather, and just got to know the whole vibe of Big Sur and the bookstore. Lucia is the child of some Hollywood elite. She fell into modeling at the age of 15, and she's a great model, and she's very professional, and it's 10 years out now. She's 26 years old in this book. Calvin, I believe, is about 28. Calvin's grandfather passed away and left Calvin the bookstore. Lucia happens to come to the bookstore because she's doing a photo shoot there. These two have an attraction. However, Calvin is a nerd. He just kind of has, I'm not going to say a difficult time, but he just feels like, she's so beautiful. She's a model. But then suddenly, he kind of starts realizing that she has the soul of a poet. And she's always wanted to be a poet. And they start exchanging books with highlighted poetry in it. And they leave it at each other's like doors during the night. And, they find these passages and these poems by Mary Oliver and things like that. It's just so it's so beautiful.
Precious.
Yes. And they, but when they finally get together, it's like Calvin is coming into his own and finds out he's a little bit of a dominating kind of guy in the bedroom.
Which we will see in your scene.
Which we will see.
Yes, I will say I have read Bohemian. Weather Girl has been on my TBR list for forever, and I'm planning to read that. So I'm very excited about each of these, and I think it's a good matchup. So, Nikki, you have got your work cut out for you, and without further ado, let this showdown begin. So, Jenny, the floor is yours.
Okay, just to set this up quickly, they have been on this photo shoot all day. They have already done the deed once before, and they just want each other during this entire shoot. She's changing into her, modeling clothing right in front of him, naked, and they need a break. She needs to take a break from the photo shoot because they have just been smoldering all day, and they're running off to have a little afternoon delight.
Perfect.
So here's the start of it. And this is from Calvin's point of view. I left, exiting the longest, horniest breath of my life before walking around the back end of the restaurant and digging for my keys. The air was almost balmy with the threat of rain, the waves, angry sounding against the shore, mirroring the pull of my body towards Lucia, who was walking towards me looking like a fantasy. We reached the car at the same time, her hands all over me as I tried to pull my keys from my pocket and slip them into the lock. 24 minutes, she whispered, shoving her hands beneath my shirt and sliding them up my chest. The key finally clicked, and I threw the door open, shoving her into the back seat. Take your fucking clothes off, I said, tossing off my shirt and yanking my pants off. Do we have time? She breathed, fingers at her lips, staring at my body. I need to feel you, I said, finding the condom I'd stuck in my jean pocket this morning. Off, I said, but she was already halfway naked, kicking off her dress and sliding over until she straddled me, her hair like a curtain sheltering us from the real world. Her bare breasts brushing against my chest, my arms wrapping around her naked back. With trembling fingers, she took the condom, slid it on, and slammed herself down on my cock, taking every single inch of me. The sound we made together wasn't human. Oh my fucking God, Lucia screamed as I snarled against her neck, marking her with my teeth. Nothing had ever felt as good, as right, as tight. I squeezed her ass, spreading her cheeks as she rode me. Fast, sloppy, the only goal to get us both off. For the first time, I had no words, couldn't think to form a single coherent thought, just licked her nipples, pulled her hair, slapped her ass every time she thrust down. The windows steamed, the car shook. She was clenching around me a minute later, her first orgasm tearing through her, tearing through us because I could feel her milking me, her gorgeous face contorted in pleasure, her name falling from my lips. A tear worked its way down her cheek, and I caught it with my tongue. I'm sorry, she panted, still rocking against me, shuddering. It just felt, Calvin, it was never like, and I soothed her with a kiss, grabbing her hips and thrusting up into her, hitting the spot I knew she loved. She screamed again, and in an instant, I had her flat on her back, both her legs over my shoulder. Never apologize for that, I said, and now I need you to come again, beautiful. I bit out, the new position intense. I tried to go slow, aware of the angle, but she bucked against me. Fuck me harder, she groaned, and I spanked her so hard her eyes widened, throat tilted back. I'll fuck you, I grunted, one knee on the car seat, other foot half planted, as hard. I grabbed onto the ledge of the car window, drilling faster, grinding my pelvis into her clit. I reached down, picked up my shirt, and shoved it into her mouth, as I fucking want. And then something in me snapped. The need to fuck an orgasm out of her overwhelming, my own orgasm already threatening to spill over. I was a blur of motions, my hips moving faster and deeper than I thought possible, and she climaxed again, clawing at my back, screaming into the cloth, tears streaming down her face, and I came with such ferocity, my world went black.
Damn.
Whoa.
I will say, I am a sucker for the sweet, quiet, nerdy man that when you bring him into the bedroom, it's like, flips a switch.
Yep.
It's like a cinnamon roll man with Dom hidden in the center, and it's
Cinnadom. This is what I'm talking about. When I talk about Cinnadoms, this is it. Yes, I'm a fan. So excellent reading, by the way. Well done, you. And Alicia, over to you. You have the floor.
Okay, so let me just preface this a little bit. This is mid-scene, so this is their first time hooking up, and he's doing his thing, and she's realizing as much as she likes him, she's not able to get off. She's and it's a very, women understand, women know. And she's had this issue with exes as well. And there are a couple times where she even says, like, the only person who can get her off is herself. So, like, you got the sweet little person, but then she talked about how she watches porn and gets off. So, like, fun. So they're doing it. She's with single dad, sweet Russ, who hasn't been on a date in 5 years. And they're mid-thing, and she's just communicated to him that, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get off.
Okay.
And so he's got a sexy suggestion for her. Okay. So you want me to touch myself while you watch? He laughs darkly. As appealing as that sounds, I could do it too if it would relax you. It conjures an odd mental image at first, but his face is so open, so earnest. I really want you to come tonight. Okay, I say, my heart pounding. Let's try it. As much as I can, I help him out of his boxer briefs, rubbing my hand along his cock as he sucks in a ragged breath. Russell is naked in my bed and waiting for me to pleasure myself, and I'm deeply, breathlessly turned on. My hand only starts shaking when I sit back up, palming one of my breasts, pinching at my nipple as I stare down the length of my body. Should I just start? Whatever makes you the most comfortable, he says, brushing his fingers across my waist. He's very clearly ready, but he waits. So I scoot to the top of the bed and lie down with him stretched out next to me. It's not until I let my hand drift between my legs, as I've done so many times before, only never with an audience, that he wraps a hand around himself. And it's no longer strange, far from it. I don't dare break eye contact as he strokes downward, then up to the bead of moisture forming at the tip. How is that? He's already breathing hard, his question rough like gravel. Good, I manage as I find a rhythm. I'm lying, it's fucking amazing, and watching him while he's watching me might be the most intensely sexual thing I've ever experienced. I didn't anticipate the sight of him touching himself being so erotic, but fuck, it is. The image of him with his hand around his dick, the tensing of his jaw and the shuddering of his breaths and the way he grips my ankle like an anchor with his free hand, yeah, that's going to be burned in my brain for a while. Then he turns his body so he can kiss me, and God, it's too much, too good. All of my senses are lit the brightest neon. Now that an orgasm feels not only possible but imminent, I let myself loosen up even more, moving my fingers faster. Out of the corner of my eye, I spy a scrap of black lace, and before I can think twice, I reach for it and pass it to him. He just looks at me as his hand moves up and down, one side of his mouth twitching. But then he takes my lead. First, he brings my panties up to his face, inhales. Then he moves them lower, lower until he's thrusting into them, and just watching him is enough to take me over the edge. These, he said, are so goddamn hot. You are so goddamn hot.
Ooh.
Ooh.
From car sex to mutual masturbation. Okay.
We Russ just going to town, a secure man that just came out of nowhere. These two sweet people just, I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. Well, and this is why when I asked everybody who was interested in submitting scenes, I was like, I want your steamy scenes, your favorite sexiest scenes. That doesn't have to be P&V sex. I mean, both excellent choices, excellent books. Thank you, ladies. And I mean, again, Nikki, you've got the tough decision here to make about what you love about each scene and what wins you over in the end.
They're both so different scene-wise, but the connection is still there between all of the characters. It's so hard.
That's what she said.
Can I just say both of these books are now on my TBR?
Great.
Good.
The TBR that will be going into my grave with me,
So
probably.
we've all won
But-
here today.
Yes. Oh, no. We are
definitely.
all winners. Everyone is a winner here.
It's like, how do you choose between the Cinnadom
Yeah.
and the hot daddy? who's secure in himself?
I don't know, but it must be
Do you know
done.
I think good old Russ has came out on top.
Wow.
Ooh, Daddy Russ.
Daddy Russ.
Yay.
Daddy Russ has came out on top just because even though he's not been on a date, he's still so secure in himself that he's happy to do whatever helps her.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved my Cinnadom, nope, Russ is it.
Yay, Russ.
It's a tough one for sure. Like, I think if I was choosing, I would have also had a tough time with this, just because I'm a sucker for masturbation scenes in romance, and you throw in like the intimacy of like a mutual masturbation side by side. Like, there's something very hot about that. And then with Bohemian, I am the biased judge here because I have read Bohemian more than once, and to date is probably still one of my favorite Kathryn Nolan books, and Kathryn Nolan knows how to write a sex scene. So tough call, but I respect your decision, Nikki. So well done, and thank you all for sharing. Well, there you have it. That is our first episode of Slick Summer Nights. As a reminder, Alicia shared Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Jenny shared Bohemian by Kathryn Nolan. Both books are available out in the world wherever you get your books. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing. And before I let you go, would you mind sharing where the fine people can find and follow you for, more book recommendations, discussions, etc.?
You can follow me on TikTok at Alicia D Reads and Writes. In my website, aliciadelory.com.
And you can come join my group. It's called ROLOS, ROLOS, and that stands for Romance Lovers Book Chat.
Like the candy.
Exactly like the candy, ROLOS. And I'm on Instagram. I'm Jenny Penny 430. I do put a lot of books up on there. And just Jenny Smith on Facebook.
And I'm Nikki's Book Nook on pretty much all of the platforms that you can find. I am very new to TikTok and I am very green. I don't know how to do TikTok very well. So you can generally find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you like, really.
I mean, does anybody really know how to do TikTok? To me, it's just you put something up, somebody likes it, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
It makes no sense. I don't understand the algorithms. I do what they say, to make it go viral. And nothing happens. I've had one thing and it didn't even go viral. It had 1,000 views and I thought I'd taken over the world.
You had a hot flash.
It didn't go viral. It had you went like you feverish. Yeah. Like you weren't
had a
quite
mild
viral.
fever.
It was like
mild fever. Antibiotics took care of it,
Oh gosh, there you go. Well, what a great lineup of books. And if you want to hear more steamy scenes, be sure to tune in again the rest of July, really, for more of these Slick Summer Night showdowns. And thanks everybody for listening. Ladies, thank you for sharing, and can't wait to share and hear more romance recs from each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Noobies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow Boobies and Noobies on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Boobies Podcast.